And now there's questions about who's pushing this. We know that Soros is funneling money that's pushed this. We know that the Communists for America are involved with this. And so I think there are all real concerns about how this is going to go. And bear in mind, many of these are the same people who've been leading the anti-ICE protests that have, in some cases, turned violent.
But what's wrong with, even if George Soros were funding it, what's wrong with that?
On her CNN program Table for Five, Abby Phillip engaged in a heated discussion with MAGA voices Lydia Moahan and Tim Parrish. The conversation focused on the No Kings protests and the way Republicans and MAGA supporters have been expressing outrage over them. Anna Navarro also joined the panel to share her perspective. We're going to review a few moments from Abby Phillip's show on CNN, and I'll give my take on the conversation, too. Let's jump right into it.
Now, this will certainly be one crowd size that gets Donald Trump's attention. Today, across America, thousands upon thousands say they're protesting the president's actions and speaking up for the First Amendment. Organizers call it No Kings, accusing Trump of acting like a monarch. Republicans all week, though, have chosen to call it something pretty different.
Hate America rally.
Hate America rally.
Hate America rally.
We call it the Hate America rally.
The farthest left, the hardest core, the most unhinged in the Democratic Party.
This will be a Soros paid for protest where his professional protesters show up.
It's all the pro-Hamas wing and the Antifa people. They're all coming out.
The rallies also produce a noteworthy split screen. The government is still shut down. And not only is there no end in sight, but neither side is even talking to each other. In fact, the House isn't in session right now. And while federal workers aren't getting their paychecks, over at the White House, Trump hosted a fancy dinner in honor of donors to his $250 million ballroom. I can't figure out, and Lydia, maybe you can help me with this, why all of a sudden is this No Kings rally so triggering to Republicans? There was one before, and it kind of passed almost without much notice, at least among Republicans. What is it about this one that is so problematic?
Bear in mind, no one is challenging anyone's right to protest, but you mentioned there was a previous No Kings protest. Somebody actually died because there weren't any safety precautions that were taken. Somebody brought a gun and was shot. So I think Republicans are worried about the safety of protesters both on the right and the left who are involved with this. And now there's questions about who's pushing this. We know that Soros is funneling money that's pushed this. We know that the Communists for America are involved with this. And so I think there are all real concerns about how this is going to go. And bear in mind, many of these are the same people who've been leading the anti-ICE protests that have, in some cases, turned violent.
But what's wrong with, even if George Soros were funding it, what's wrong with that? I mean, this is America. He's not allowed to fund a protest?
People are absolutely allowed to protest, but bear in mind, this is stemming in part from an ideology that's challenging the duly elected president.
I mean, again, what is wrong with that? I mean, what is the problem?
And bear in mind, no one is saying this shouldn't happen. People are allowed to protest freely.
Yeah, I guess that's the part.
Also allows Republicans to say, I don't like it.
I'm just not understanding why all of a sudden it's, traitorous to go out in the streets and protest the president when that's, in fact, what you're allowed to do in this country.
Yeah, and no one, I want to reiterate, no one is challenging the idea that people can go peacefully gather and protest. That's not an issue. What we are saying is we want people to do so peacefully. We don't want them to burn things down. We don't want someone to get shot on the streets. Last time they had this protest, there was the military parade, if you remember, that was happening. So it kind of fell on deaf ears and it didn't get covered as much. But yeah, people can go protest. People can do whatever they want. But when you trace the dollars and you trace the support, it does go back to some left extremist groups, Antifa, pro-Hamas groups that are in fact putting
There's been no evidence of that, by the way.
There actually is. There's federal reports suggesting that maybe they may be linked to it.
Okay, wait. Time out.
Sorry.
We've said no one's challenging.
Let's pause here for a moment. When Lydia says to Abby Phillip, everyone has the right to protest, but that but shouldn't even be there. It should simply be, everyone has the right to protest. That's what America stands for. I don't believe MAGA truly supports the idea of protest. If people like Mike Johnson and other MAGA figures had lived in the 1700s, they'd probably have been the ones saying, "How dare you rise up against our king?" and calling the patriots who dumped tea into the harbor terrorists. That's exactly the mindset they would have had. It's fitting that the rally is called the No Kings protest, because many of these MAGA pundits seem like they'd prefer having a king. Every time these MAGA commentators appear on Abby Phillip's show, or in this case, on a Sunday morning, they hide behind excuses like wanting protests to be safe. The truth is, they don't care about the safety of protesters. If anything, they'd be pleased if the police cracked down on them. Lydia points out someone was shot, but out of millions who joined the first No Kings protest, that single incident doesn't define the movement. The real issue is that MAGA doesn't believe in protest or dissent. They don't think anyone should question their dear leader, Donald Trump. We see this attitude repeatedly from people like Scott Jennings, Ben Ferguson, and other MAGA voices who show up on Abby Phillipps' show. Their message is clear: stay quiet and let Republicans do whatever they want. And when they label these gatherings as Hate America rallies, accusing protesters of being Antifa or Hamas supporters, it's simply false. But even if every single protester were part of those groups, and they're not, as long as they protest peacefully, they still have the right to do so. That's the essence of America. Yet MAGA continues to prove time and again that they reject that very principle.
Right to protest, and yet, what I heard from Republican leaders this week is that the protesters were terrorists. I heard them constantly, from the Speaker of the House to U.S. senators to Trump cabinet members, equating the protesters with Antifa. Now, those would be bad words in any other circumstance because it's First Amendment protected speech, and saying it's terrorism, that's a morally wrong thing to do. But this is worse than that, because just last month, this administration designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization.
Do you disagree with that?
They are
Good.
Yes, I do. They are equating protesters with terrorists, and by equating protesters with terrorists, they're creating a chilling effect, and they're opening the aperture to investigate them. I'll tell you why. NSPM 7, National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, that was passed by the White House, issued by the White House last month, says that people who directly or indirectly support those domestic terrorist organizations can be investigated. By that standard, they're saying that protesters and people who organize protests where Antifa might show up could be investigated. And then this week, the administration took control, or made moves to take control, of the criminal division of the IRS. This would be like if George W. Bush had said Code Pink was Al-Qaeda, or people protesting the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were associated with the Islamic State.
I think that's a
That is
stretch.
not the
I think
case.
that people who do these protests, that do them peacefully and they make their voices known, is okay. When you get to the place where you're burning stuff down and you're destroying cities, that's another issue. And when you trace back and you look at who support these groups, who's organizing these events, it's absolutely linked to people who've done the things that I just mentioned.
Let me just say, I'm at this table. I actually went to the No Kings rally in June. To me, they were organically created. People chose to go because they are unhappy with what's happening in this country. I think there's much more unhappiness today, even than there was back in June. What I saw was people of all creeds, all ages, people with different backgrounds, all coming together and exercising their First Amendment right of assembly and of freedom of speech. I think that at a time when people feel that the government, some people in this country feel the government is bullying them into silence and fear. This is a way of showing that we are not afraid. I did not go because Soros told me to go. I did not go because the communists told me to go. I went as an American to exercise my rights. I didn't see any of the things that you all are suggesting.
If you were really fearful about fascism, you would not be allowed to protest. That's the irony in all of this, is that people are allowed to demonstrate
That's
freely.
totally
Republicans
true.
are 100% okay
No,
with that.
wait,
And it kind of undermines
Hold
their
on.
whole point.
Repu-
Meanwhile,
you
they
just
have
said-
signs that say
But hold
Trump is a
on.
Nazi.
So what?
Lydia, I think you're so right that
That's by the way, his vice president called him a
protesting-
Nazi too.
The fact of protesting is a demonstration of people's rights in a democracy. But you just said Republicans have no problem with it, and yet they've spent the entire week demonizing
There were like
people.
4 sound bites. Sean Duffy, by the way, I actually have a quote from another Trump cabinet member who said, "I'm all about free speech. I'm all about protest. It's the great American way. I'm concerned about who's paying for it and who's organizing."
Okay.
It doesn't matter who funds or organizes these rallies, and that's exactly the point Abby Phillip was trying to make during the discussion. Anna Navarro summed it up perfectly. The truth is, MAGA supporters don't actually back any form of protest unless it's January the 6th. They can't seem to grasp that not everyone worships their so-called God King or believes everything Donald Trump does is wonderful. I recently spoke with someone I went to school with, a diehard MAGA supporter from my town, and told him I knew several older folks, even people in their 70s, who were planning to attend the No Kings rally. I explained that these people weren't extremists. One of them was even a Vietnam veteran. I told him they simply see the country differently and oppose what Trump is doing. His first reaction was to ask, who's paying them? When I said nobody, he claimed, then they're mentally ill. So according to him, anyone who disagrees with this administration is either being paid off or mentally unstable. When I asked what percentage of Democrats or progressives he thought were mentally ill, he said probably about 50%. And when I asked about Trump supporters, he confidently replied, 0. I have a psychology degree, and while I don't think political beliefs directly relate to mental health, this conversation really showed me how many on the far right think. To them, anyone who challenges their movement must hate America, support Hamas, or be some kind of threat. They believe that every normal person should fully back Donald Trump. That mindset says a lot. Personally, I believe the most American act anyone can do is to stand up and peacefully protest, no matter who or what the protest is about. In this country, we have the right to voice disagreement, even with the president. But it's clear that MAGA doesn't truly support that principle. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with Abby Phillip or Anna Navarro? Or do you side with the MAGA pundits? I'll see you next time.